The courtroom was buzzing that morning, the kind of low hum that happens when strangers gather to witness someone else's fate. At the center of it all stood Sarah Johnson, a young single mother in her early 30s, clutching a worn-out folder of documents to her chest. Her eyes were tired, but her chin was lifted high. She wasn't here to beg, she was here to fight. On the other side of the courtroom sat David Miller, her ex-husband, a man who carried himself like he owned the room. He wore a tailored navy blue suit, flashed a smug smile, and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. His new wife Lauren sat beside him, looking Sarah up and down with thinly veiled contempt. "You really think the judge is going to give you custody, Sarah?" David sneered as he leaned back in his chair. "You can barely afford rent. I've got the house, the income, the stability. Face it, you don't stand a chance." A few chuckles rippled through the courtroom from people who overheard. Sarah gripped her folder tighter, her knuckles turning white. She didn't reply. She knew words wouldn't change David's mind, and she wasn't here for him. She was here for her daughter Lily. The judge finally entered and the room rose. Judge Thompson was known for being fair but firm, a man who could see through lies like glass. After the formalities, the case began. David's attorney was the first to speak. He painted Sarah as an irresponsible mother, someone who was struggling financially and therefore unfit to raise a child. He mentioned Sarah's late rent payments, her small apartment, and her job at the local diner. Each word seemed like a dagger, aimed to cut her credibility to pieces. Sarah sat quietly listening, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of judgment in the room, the stares of strangers who thought they already knew her story. When it was her turn, Sarah stood, adjusting her thrift store blazer. Her voice trembled at first, but then it grew steadier as she spoke. "Your Honor," she began, "I may not have the biggest house or the fanciest car. But what I do have is love. And love is something money can't buy." She paused, glancing over at her daughter, who sat quietly in the corner with a social worker. Little Lily's eyes were wide, watching her mother with a mix of fear and hope. Sarah continued, "I work 2 jobs not because I want to but because I have to. Every dollar I make goes into Lily's school supplies, her clothes, her meals. I've missed sleep, I've skipped meals, and I've walked miles just to make sure she had what she needed. And despite what anyone says, Lily has never gone without love, care, or protection." The courtroom grew still. Even the people who had laughed earlier were now leaning in. But Sarah wasn't finished. She opened the worn folder she had been holding so tightly. "Your Honor, I have here every receipt, every medical record, every school report. I may not be rich, but I can prove that I've been there for Lily every single day. When she was sick, it was me at the hospital. When she had nightmares, it was me holding her hand. When she learned to ride a bike, I was the one running beside her." She laid the documents on the judge's desk with trembling hands, then took a deep breath. "And while her father was taking vacations in Miami and buying new cars," she added, her voice firm now, "I was at home teaching Lily how to read. Tell me, Your Honor, which one of us has truly provided stability?" A murmur spread through the room. David's confident smirk faltered, and he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His attorney tried to interject, but Judge Thompson held up a hand. The judge adjusted his glasses, flipping through the documents. His face remained stern, but his silence spoke volumes. Finally he looked up. "Mr. Miller," Judge Thompson said, his voice calm but cutting, "money may provide comfort, but it does not define character. This court is not blind to who has truly been there for this child." David opened his mouth to argue, but the judge's gaze silenced him instantly. The ruling was clear. Custody was granted to Sarah, with visitation rights for David. For a moment Sarah just stood there frozen. Then tears welled in her eyes as relief washed over her. She turned to see Lily running across the courtroom, throwing her little arms around her mother's waist. The laughter and whispers that had mocked her earlier were gone, replaced by quiet respect. People who once doubted her were now moved by her strength. As Sarah carried her daughter out of the courtroom, she didn't feel poor and she didn't feel defeated. She felt victorious. Because in that moment she realized something powerful. She wasn't just a single mom fighting against the odds. She was a mother who had won not just custody but dignity, respect, and the right to raise her daughter in love. And that was worth more than any amount of money her ex-husband could ever flaunt.